Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now redubbed by Disney or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Can you imagine? I have no comics, no short stories, no nothing but a novel and a video game for you guys today. Today we have as the title as this video suggests, Maul Lockdown by Joe Schreiber, the same one who did Red Harvest and Death Troopers, one of which I've read, the other which I have not yet. Red Harvest was pretty bleh. There were some cool things in there, but it was overall pretty bleh book, pretty whatever novel. But this is one of the good ones, and I trust that Death Troopers will be just as fun way down the line when we get to it. I don't actually have too much to say about this non-spoiler wise. The premise is either going to make you want to buy this book or you're not going to buy this book. If you're a Maul fan, this is a must. One of the most interesting things I'll say, I don't usually go into the background of books, but for this one I will. Maul Lockdown was actually one of the last books written before the Disney buyout. So while Darth Plagueis probably has the most continuity because it tries to fit like everything into that book. It is the most grand book in terms of making every possible connection to everything ever in that novel. But this does have some interesting nods and connections within this book here. Not as much, but it's there for sure. And this book has the added advantage of being one of the last books written in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. So he has all the knowledge of the history of the Expanded Universe, whether that be from the New Jedi Order era to, the Old Republic era. He has all the information. So there's some cool things in there. The main premise of the book is this. Maul is tasked with the mission by Darth Sidious. He must go to this prison. In this prison, the walls contort and change. And at any given moment while you are locked up in your cell, you could be up against another opponent, another inmate. And it's a fight to the death, a gladiatorial fight, you might say. And if by that premise alone you sound interested, then this book is definitely worth your time, for sure. That's what made me super excited to read this book. If you've read Red Harvest or Death Troopers, and you know that it is a very bloody, very graphic, very violent books, because he likes to get into the nit and gritty, I guess, of that sort of stuff. So if that stuff interests you, this is definitely a reason to get this book. Another reason, if you really liked Cloak of Deception or Darth Plagueis for the politics and the stuff behind the scenes, then you get a similar thing here. Not as in-depth at all. But this book is more of, you have the Jedi side, you have the Sith side, future stuff, all the Mandalorian side, and we've had that in the past. You have the politics side, you have the war side when we get to the Clone Wars. Here we have kind of the seedy underground perspective. We get to see kind of the crime lord perspective. We get to see certain characters make an appearance. You probably already know about by me saying that. But you get to see kind of the seedy underworld, if you call it politics. It's not politics because it's not a legal system, but like the way characters interact, the way the people down in the darkness, down in the crime parts interact and stuff. And that was a very cool aspect to the book. Overall, without spoilers, I'd say without a doubt there's some interesting little things added into this book which are really awesome. Lot of continuity between certain things that I'll talk about in spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for you in case you haven't read it, but it is definitely it's an enjoyable book. It's by no means the best book in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, but it is a very, very fun book, and if you're a fan of Maul, this is an absolute must, is what I'll say non-spoiler wise. The only other thing I'd say chronologically to read slash watch slash play next in your chronological viewing, if you're following my chronological order anyway, before I get into spoilers from Maul Lockdown, is that there's a video game by the title of Obi-Wan that was made for the Xbox in like 2001. I'm sure there's some like emulator you could play on the PC, but I think the only copy is on Xbox. I could be wrong about that. Like the original Xbox. So as for what you would play of the game, basically there's a good half of the game which is all expanded universe material because it takes place outside the scope of the movies. And then the second half of the game is just the movie, the first movie, The Phantom Menace, that you can play. So I really don't have too much to say in terms of the story. I mean, there is a story. I don't really have anything to say about it, though. Nothing of note that I could really add to it. But if you were going to play that video game, if you're one of the Star Wars Expanded Universe people who loves to play video games, so this doesn't apply to Matt Wilkins, you would play the game up until you start seeing that it's a Phantom Menace mission. When you're like, oh, it's the Phantom Menace now. Stop playing, obviously, because that's the Phantom Menace, and we're not there yet chronologically. So that's about it, guys. Absolutely enjoyed Maul Lockdown. Definitely think it's worth your time, especially if you're a big fan of Maul. Anyway, guys, that's it for non-spoilers. If you're a veteran or you just don't care about spoilers, stick with me. I don't have too much to say, but we're going to get right out of the bag, so you better leave right now because I'm about to say the very first thing on this list of spoilers, which is the beginning of the book. You all know what I'm talking about if you've read it. This is your last chance to leave. I've given you all the opportunities. You can't yell at me now. Maul versus Avon. The books, we kind of get flashbacks to Sidious giving Maul the mission, but we start the book with Maul fighting this creature. It's never said by name, obviously, because we are still long before the Yusong Vong invasion. But what you do get to see is what I would assume to be one of the Vong scouts that was scouting during this time that just got captured by these guys. But you can clearly tell, based on the way they talk about his armor, the way they talk about the weapon that he's using, a staff that turns into a serpent that attacks you. It's a Vong. And of course, Maul wins. Also, an interesting note, I didn't say during non-spoilers, Maul isn't allowed to use the Force. People are watching him. He cannot ruin the secrecy of the Sith. So he is tasked with dealing with every single threat without using the Force, or at least Force abilities that would be clearly, you'd be able to tell that you were using the Force. And so it makes things a lot more brutal, which I love. There is a father and son, I forget their names, in this book, but I found them really interesting, which is really good, because when you have a book that doesn't, when you introduce characters that are only for that book, and aren't a part of the movies, when they're a part of the movies, you just automatically have an invested interest in them because they're from the movies. So when you make new characters, you have to make them super interesting to make people care about that. And so I think they did a pretty good job with the father and son characters. I enjoyed them immensely. I thought they were really interesting characters. The next thing is that Maul fights a Wampa. That's right, the snowman-looking things. Not snowmen, but, like the abominable snowman from episode 5 that Luke gets attacked by. So that was very, very cool and a very fun fight. The character named Zero. Oh, I should also mention. Oh, frick, how did I forget this? Well, whatever. So, there's a short story called the Cyrox Redemption. Now, I reviewed that earlier in a video. Because that's where it went chronologically. But if you just wanted to read a short story before reading this book that was connected to this book, the Cyrox Redemption would be the story you read. Anyway, speaking of that, the Cyrax makes a return. And that's just kind of the background for a while until it becomes a huge thing near the end of the book. Another wonderful addition to this book is that we get multiple scenes, not super long, but we get some really interesting scenes with Plagueis and Darth Sidious. I really, really like these chapters especially. It's really, really, I just really enjoyed those sections. From this whole time, Maul is looking for this guy named Iram Radiq, because that's who Darth Sidious, asked him to go find. We find out at the very end of the book that Radiq is a chiss, which is not a big deal or anything. It's not a chiss that we know or anything. It's really cool because you see few chiss interact with like other species because they usually keep to themselves primarily. So whenever we get to see a chiss in the expanded universe, I find it really cool. And of course, when you see a chiss, you think of Thrawn. This guy's obviously really smart. It seems to just be a thing of the chiss species. He's definitely not smarter than Thrawn, it seems like, but it's interesting that he's there. I just thought I'd mention that because I thought it was really cool. We also get a mention about the other prison, Purge, from Death Troopers, which I have not read yet, but it's there. And then here's the next big EU connection. I have not gotten to yet. I've never played it before. I know nothing about it. But Komari Vosa, the Bandagora, part of the Bandagora. Komari Vosa is the second Jedi apprentice to Count Dooku. First you had Qui-Gon, then you had Komari Vosa. But that was a failed apprentice. She later on went on to join the Bandagora. Now the interesting thing about her is that in the Star Wars Bounty Hunter video game, she's the main kind of antagonist. And that is the person that Count Dooku charges Jango Fett to take care of. So I love that you don't have to do that. It's a video game, but they went out of the way to make that connection, and I absolutely love that. And it gives me some more context for when I get into that, when I finally play that video game, or when I watch that video game, whatever I do, I now have, expanded knowledge on this character, and I love that. It's absolutely wonderful. At the end of the book, we get a showdown before Maul and Vosa. Later on, though, that worm I mentioned, the Cyrox, makes a return, and they have to work together to defeat it. And that is pretty much it for my my spoiler review section. Not too much, but I do really like that. Also, it's curious. I looked it up because the lightsabers that Komari Vosa uses, from its description, sounded very similar to Ventress's lightsabers, which you find out once she's taken care of in the video game we haven't got to yet. Dooku takes those lightsabers and would later give them to Ventress, so those are Ventress's lightsabers, which I just found really cool. But anyway, that's about it for my review for Maul Lockdown. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know I'm not the most in-depth with my reviews. I kind of just talk about what I found fun and stuff. But there's a lot of action in this book, so the story is not that deep or anything. So I just thought I mentioned stuff that I found really interesting. Up next, I think we have the Darth Maul comic, which I'm really excited for, because I know who the artist is, and it's the artist who did Legacy, and you know how much I adore that art, so I'm really excited to see it again. But that's about it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, sharing helps a ton. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. And may the Force be with you.